Hey garden friends, today we are going to talk about something that you will find very helpful. It's 10 flowers and plants that improve soil health naturally. You know, I'm talking a lot about soil health all the time. Healthy soil means a healthy garden, which means a lot lower maintenance. So let's get going. Yeah, this one I've been wanting to do for a while because I talk a lot about soil health, how you won't have to use a lot of fertilizers, pesticides, all of that if you have a healthy garden. And the very basic component that is most important is good soil. And so there are plants that you can plant that will help you to improve your soil health. And they're fairly easy to grow. And I'm going to run through all 10 of them. I'm going to tell you the pros and the cons, what they do, and what you got to watch out for. So the first one is clover. Now, does it do? First of all, it grows in zones 3 through 10. Will overwinter, so it's perennial there. And it's a nitrogen-fixing plant that enriches the soil by converting atmospheric nitrogen into a usable form for your other plants. So, but here's a note. White clover is considered invasive in many states. So you have to look up if it's one of them that is invasive in your states. So how do you use it? You can grow clover as a cover crop, that's usually crimson clover, or a ground cover. I have the micro clover that I use in a pathway in place of grass because it's more drought tolerant. I have found it that I can keep it in check. I keep it mowed so it doesn't go to seed. And along the edges where it wants to creep by rhizomes, I just use my weed eater and I cut it off, or a sharp shovel, and cut along the edge and pull out anything that goes into my flower beds where I don't want it. So the micro clover that I use is ideal for pathways, while crimson clover works well in garden beds as a cover crop. Cut it back before it goes to seed. Yes, I've grown the crimson clover. It's beautiful, and the pollinators love it too, but do make sure you don't let it spread. The seeds can really spread and become weedy. So the cons, which I mentioned some already, it can become invasive. It spreads aggressively into unwanted areas if you don't keep on top of it. And this one's kind of is a con, but really is an advantage too. It attracts bees. So the con is in high traffic areas, it could be a concern for those who are allergic to bees. So yeah, that was number one, clover. Now comfrey. Comfrey is hardy zones 4 through 9, and it improves the soil by the taproot drops up nutrients like potassium, calcium, and phosphorus from deep layers of the soil. It enriches the topsoil. This makes nutrients available for other plants. Some call plants like this nutrient miners. Now, yes, dandelions are also considered a nutrient miner because they do the same thing. Their deep taproot pulls up these nutrients to the topsoil so other plants can use them. And you thought dandelion was a weed. It can be a very beneficial plant. In fact, it was planted by farmers just for that when they came over from Europe, just because of that aspect or element that it does. Okay, so how to use it? Plant as a perennial mulch source. Harvest leaves for compost or as a nutrient-rich mulch layer. When I grow something like that, I just cut it back here and there into the 1-inch pieces, and then I toss it on top of the soil as a mulch. When the plant is picked or cut, this is interesting, and you soak it in water. You just cram it in a bucket as tight as you can, and then you fill the bucket with water. Then you let it sit for a few weeks. It draws out the nutrients, makes a great liquid fertilizer. But let me tell you, it smells to high heaven. It is so stinky. So I don't always make the liquid fertilizer with it. I use it more or less as a mulch. Then it incorporates in the soil. So, but if you need something natural and that you want to use in your garden, then try they call it comfrey tea. Okay, what are the cons of Comfrey? It's difficult to remove once established due to its deep and persistent root system. So it can spread rapidly, becoming invasive in some areas. Now, I have friends, they grow it in a dedicated raised bed. It stays right there. So they keep it in check that way. Lupins. Now here, lupins are native. We have native lupins, which are like a bush, the mountain, or what is it called? Foothill lupins. So these are hardy in zones 4 through 8. And why it improves the soil is because it is a legume. Lupins fix nitrogen in the soil, and it improves fertility for future crops. Their deep taproots also aerate and loosen compacted soil. And many lupin species are short-lived perennials or annuals. So how do you use it? I love lupins as an ornamental, but you could also use them as a green manure crop. Isn't that amazing? So cut the foliage of the plants after flowering and let it fall into the soil surface as mulch for added organic matter. That's how I do it. The plants get quite tall. When they're done flowering, that's it for the season. They won't reflower, and I just cut them back in increments, small increments, and let it drop to the soil. And that feeds the soil and the microbes and the worms. So cons: can be toxic to pets and livestock if they eat it. They say like it promotes miscarriages in goats, etc. So it's not good if you have animals like that eat foliage plants. And it may not thrive in areas with high humidity or poor drainage. So I have a post on how I grow lupins in my garden on my blog. I love them. I have had no issue with them. My kitty doesn't try to eat them, so I don't worry about her. Okay, buckwheat. Buckwheat I love. It's hardy in zones 3 through 8. Most places it's grown as an annual. 3 through 10. Sorry, I don't know how I said 8. Why it improves the soil. Buckwheat grows rapidly, suppressing weeds and scavenging phosphorus, which becomes available for future plants. Buckwheat can also help to balance the pH of soils. I was listening to a podcast. Two flower farmers were talking, cut flower farmers, and the one had a high alkaline soil, planted buckwheat in the raised bed that she was going to plant her cut flowers in. She put it all right down the middle, and when came time to cut it back, she didn't take it out. She planted the cut flowers in that bed. The buckwheat came back. It regrew. She cut it again, but come the next fall, or whenever she did her soil tested less alkaline. The pH was neutralized, and all she did was have that buckwheat in there. Now, many people will tell you to grow it, cut it back, till it in, and then plant, but she actually planted it and left it there, spots for it in that bed, and it grew alongside the cut flowers. The cut flowers grew beautifully. It didn't compete, it helped the cut flowers. So that's something that I found interesting. So how to use it? Plant as a fast-growing summer cover crop. Yes, it likes the warm weather, and that's why she grew it alongside her cut flowers. Mow or till before it sets seed to add organic matter to the soil. So what I do, it actually has really pretty flowers, white flowers that are really quite lovely, very fairy-like. But I let it grow amongst with my flowers. It will bloom. When I notice it kind of fading before it sets seed, and you can let it set seed if you want. I don't mind it reseeding itself in the beds because I recognize it from the time it's very little. And if I want to hoe it under, I go ahead. But I go ahead and I'll prune it back, deadhead it back, like all the way to the ground in the little increments, cut it back, and then let it drop to the soil. And I've not had it get out of control, but it is doing its job. And even though I'm a zone 8, it has not been killed off in any of the winter freezes yet. So, and it's come back from seed where I have let it reseed. So I love it because so far it hasn't been a problem. but I do deadhead regularly in my gardens. I'm out in my gardens all the time, so I'm able to stay on top of things like that. If you are kind of a set it and forget it gardener, you might want to avoid it. Sunflowers. I thought that was interesting. I didn't know sunflowers help the soil, because there's a note in here, and I'll tell you about it in a minute. They're grown as an annual, and it's 2 through 11. Really, when you have annuals, you're not too concerned with your zone. You're more concerned with your growing conditions. So why it improves soil? Sunflowers have long tap roots, kind of like the dandelions and the others, that break up compacted soil, improve drainage, and bring nutrients to the surface. So how do you use it? Well, of course, you'd want, if you wanted to do the benefits, is you plant it in poor or compacted soils, and that helps the soil structure. You compost the spent stalks and leaves to boost organic matter. Now, you can do that with most any plant, but with the stalks, I would cut them into small pieces, or it takes a long time for them to compost. So the cons, here's the one I was mentioning. Produces an allelopathic compounds that may inhibit the growth of certain nearby plants. So you'll want to look up the plants that you don't plant near sunflowers, because they are sensitive to those allelopathic compounds. The other con is, which is kind of an iffy con, they can grow very tall and they can shade smaller plants. So if you plant them in an area where you want them to kind of provide dappled shade, that's a good idea. But if it's the plants that they shade are ones that love the sun, then it's a con. Okay, marigolds. They're an annual. Again, zones really don't matter. This 2 through 11, which is the range. Why it improves soil? Now, there's a caveat with this, and I'll mention it in a minute. Marigolds suppress harmful nematodes with their natural compounds, improving soil health for subsequent crops. Note, it is only the French marigolds that do this, not every one of them across the board. So, how to use it? Plant around vegetable beds or as a nematode suppressing cover crop. If you had a bed that you had nematode problems, it might be good to cover it with these plants, let them have a season there, and then it will get rid of them for you. So, and then you add the spent flowers to compost to recycle the nutrients. Now, I will say also, the flowers of my marigolds I fed to my chickens, because the flower petals, there's something in them that makes the yolks really rich and yummy and very orange. And I love my rich homegrown eggs. So, cons. Needs to be replanted yearly. Really, is that a con? That's just a natural thing for an annual. But some gardeners find their distinct scent unpleasant. I could say sometimes I did, but this last year I grew them in the bed with my strawberries, and they didn't bother me. The year before I had planted they were the African marigolds. They had a scent that was very interesting. It wasn't the spicy scent of the French marigolds, and it was really quite pleasant. But they don't do the nematode suppressing like the French marigolds do. So it says may not control nematodes effectively if not planted in sufficient quantities. So you need to plant a lot of them if you have a nematode problem. Daikon radish. This is one I want to try. I haven't tried this one yet. It's also an annual, so the zones really don't matter. It improves soil because the deep taproot, again, breaks up compacted soil and improves aeration. And another name for them, nickname, is tillage radishes. So that tells you what they do. So you can plant them as a cover crop in an area that's compacted and you want to maybe utilize the next season. Just let them go and do their thing. So you let the roots decompose in the soil, it'll fertilize and loosen it naturally. But the cons, the roots, when they're rotting in there, they really are stinky. They create an unpleasant odor. And it says that radishes, and also radishes across the board, they can attract pests like root maggots and flea beetles. So to counter that, you would cover them with a row cover crop, a row cover cloth. And then if you have plenty of beneficial insects in your garden, then you probably won't have as much of an issue with the root maggots and flea beetles. So yarrow. Yarrow is one of my favorite flowers. It grows, it's perennial in zones 3 through 9. So why does it improve the soil? Its deep roots mine nutrients like potassium and calcium, making them available for nearby plants. I wonder if they'd be good planted next to tomatoes. It also helps speed up compost decomposition. That's a good one. How to use it. Grow in borders or pathways for ornamentals and soil benefits. So if you have it planted in all amongst your other plants, yeah, it can bring up those nutrients for them. Add leaves to compost pile to boost decomposition. I did not know that. So cons, it can spread aggressively via rhizomes, potentially becoming invasive. Now that's the native yarrow, the white one. That one I noticed does become a bully in the garden. But the ones, the hybrids or the colored ones, like I have Cerise Queen, I have like Summer Pastels. The ones that are the fancier or brighter colors, not just the white or yellow, those ones are not. They do self-seed, but they don't become aggressive. But to prevent the other one, you can from any of them from becoming aggressive, you can deadhead them regularly, and then the seeds won't spread. But the colored ones, I love the seed spreading. Alfalfa. Now I have a whole blog post on alfalfa. I have a blog post on growing yarrow too, or achillea. So if you want to see any of these, I'll try to remember to link them in the description box. If I miss any, if you go to my website and you just type in the plant name, like yarrow, in the search bar, it will bring up all the articles I have written on that plant. So that's just a word to the wise. Alfalfa, zones 3 through 10. Why does it improve the soil? It's a nitrogen-fixing legume with deep roots that help improve soil structure and fertility. So how to use it? Grow as a perennial cover crop or green manure. Cut back periodically and till into the soil to add nutrients. Cons, requires consistent mowing or tilling to prevent it from becoming weedy. And it can deplete soil moisture quickly. It must be a water hog, competing with nearby plants. Now, I'll tell you how I use alfalfa. I use it as a mulch. I buy bales of alfalfa, and I'll take off like 2-inch flakes, and I'll lay them down on top of the soil. I used them in a pathway to prevent weeds. I'll if I want to keep weeds completely out of an area, I won't fluff it up, but I'll tear it apart and use it around roses, my tomatoes and other things as a mulch. But also the worms love it. They come up and eat it. They turn the soil. It fixes nitrogen. It also has something beneficial in it for seedlings. I can't remember what it was called, but it helps them to grow stronger. But go get a bale of alfalfa and use it like that if you so desire. Borage. This is number 10. I've only grown the blue borage. I was looking it up, and there were some kind of white ones or whatever. But it's grown as an annual. Of course, zones 2 through 11. That means all of them. Why it improves the soil? Borage accumulates potassium and calcium from deep in the soil, making it accessible to other plants. It also attracts pollinators. Now, I can attest to that with the blue one. I've grown the blue one. It does. The bees go mad for it. How to use it. Plant as a companion to vegetables or in pollinator gardens. Use spent plants and compost for nutrient-rich organic matter. The cons. It self-seeds aggressively and can spread uncontrollably if not managed. I thought, is that really true, or is this some kind of phooey? Because it never has been aggressive for me. I'm in zone 8. So you think if it was going to be aggressive, it would be here. But when I looked it up, sure enough, in some areas, it has proven to become aggressive. So that's a note to that. The large leaves and stems can be prickly, making it less pleasant to handle. Yeah, I've never really handled it, so I didn't have any problem with that. So, tips for using these 10 plants to improve your soil. Plan for rotation. Incorporate legumes like clover, alfalfa, or lupins in crop rotations to maintain soil fertility. Embrace cover crops. Use fast-growing options like buckwheat and daikon radishes between planting seasons. Like I said, use the buckwheat right in your flower beds. Just keep on top of it that it doesn't get out of hand with reseeding. Chop and drop plants like comfrey, sunflowers, and borage for mulching and composting too. Now, when I chop and drop, that is called sheet composting, meaning it just drops to the ground, it composts in place. A lot of people that have like their plants spread far apart and then they have pretty mulch that's real dark between them, that might not work for them because they want that tidy look. But for me, my plants are planted close together and you don't even notice it. And it starts to turn brown like the soil surface really quickly as they dry out, and they just do all their thing and on their own. I don't have to haul them anywhere, nothing, chop and drop. So by integrating these 10 plants into your garden, you'll nurture not just your plants, but the soil beneath them. And that's what we're after here. So you create a thriving, sustainable garden for years to come. Yes, feeding the soil is very important for the long term. So which one of these soil improving plants have you tried? Let me know. Or if you've tried something else that I didn't mention here, please do share. I'm always looking for new things to try. So my goal of my channel is to help you cultivate the love of gardening and to enjoy doing it the old-fashioned way, where you nurture things slowly, relaxing way. The old-fashioned, starting seeds, cuttings. It's not just run to the garden center, buy a big plant and plop it in. I love enjoying the journey, savoring the journey as much as I do a beautiful garden. So I hope I've encouraged you to do so. Try some of these soil improvement plants and let me know how it goes. So I'll see you in my next video.